and welcome to Onesies, a podcast of one-season wonders and blunders. My name's Andrew.
My name is Emily.
And we are 17/21 through Dracula the series, a 1990 syndicated Canadian Luxembourgish production from the proto Hallmark Entertainment Channel, which is quite funny. So we are on episode 17, which is The Decline of the Romanian Vampire, which sounds like a cool title, but has nothing to do with the episode content.
Not really, no.
Yeah.
No. The attempted decline of the Romanian vampire?
Yeah.
I don't know.
But
I have nothing.
Certainly not the decline of Western civilization or just anything, really. The decline is, well, I guess technically his health declines, which we will get to.
Yeah.
Though I noticed a bug in that trap too at some point. I hope I remember it. I didn't write it down.
Oh, you should write it down now.
Well, speaking of writing things down, do you have your 3 items?
Yes. So I would like to talk about the intellectual capabilities of a pile of ash. I would like to discuss before this, well, I think it happens throughout, but talking to oneself as an exposition dump. And wow, Bram Stoker alert.
Okay. Broad daylight, oil fields, and my 2 fathers.
Okay. So we open, if I may, with Max wandering around a graveyard, putting flowers on graves, and discovering that his uncle Gustav has a tomb, a family tomb. So he walks up to it. He notices that there's a cross in the door. And we are immediately reminded that there was an episode, I don't know, 1,000 episodes ago, where Klaus got locked in. And
episode 6.
Episode
11
6,
episodes
so 11
ago.
Episodes ago. And Max spends a good chunk of this, because he's alone, talking to himself. Now, I talk to myself a lot. Do we have an extra special guest? Oh my gosh, hi. Hello, guest.
Hello, extra special guest.
You want to talk about Dracula the series with us? Hi, baby. Aw, sweet kitty. So Max spends a good chunk of the time talking to himself, reminding us that, yes, this is Gustav's family tomb, that there is a cross in the door, which I do remember. That continuity is still there. I do remember from that episode, without having had rewatched it. Somehow I remembered that little detail. There's a cross jammed in the door, and Max says, "Oh, that's great for keeping vampires out. Good thinking." And he takes the cross out. He opens the thing, and he happens upon a pile of ash surrounded by another pile of ash.
Well,
the circle it looks like dirt.
Yes, but it is supposed to be the circle of holy water.
How did it turn into dirt?
So, because he poured it in dirt, and the holy water removed the pigment from the dirt.
Oh, okay. I'll trust you on this. So he starts, like you do, fiddling with the circle, the perfect circle of unpigmented dirt, and the pile of dust starts burning, starts smoking, and poof, we are met by Klaus, who is maniacal as ever, Mr. Perfect, laughing maniacally, not hysterically, and being the broadest bad guy I've ever seen in my life. And this broad bad guy character will continue throughout this episode in many, many ways. The typical Bond villain nonsense.
Yeah.
And I've never even seen a Bond movie, and I know that this is nonsense.
What's his name? Geraint Wyn Davies. He's really bad this episode.
He's really bad.
And there's not much good acting this episode, but he still manages to be really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you notice the ash thing, so we'll have to talk about that in a bit. But so I think this must have been after Mom's episode, because
Okay.
in Mom's episode, Gustav's like, well, no, I know what we'll do with her. We'll just, take her to the family crypt and put her in a ring of holy water and lock her in with a cross. It'll be fine until we find a cure. And the kids are like, okay, that's it. So Max would have had a reference at that point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because one of my big questions, of course, is will the kids find out who Klaus is? But first, we have got our. Okay, so then Klaus tells Max he's going to spare his life for freeing
Yes.
him, and that he's going to unleash tears of the earth that have never been seen or something. And then he walks out of the crypt into the sunlight.
Yeah.
Right into the sunlight. So, first of all, he wasn't Ash when we last saw him, was he?
I don't remember that.
I don't think so. So, presumably, he got zapped with sunlight through a crack that we still don't see in it, but it's a very poorly. There's no establishing shot because they want to concentrate on Jacob Tierney experiencing the crypt for himself. So we're really I didn't get the director's name. It's not Eastman, but it's
Jeff Wolnaugh. Is it Jeff?
Jeff
Yes.
Wolnaugh, who directed My Girlfriend's Back. That's not great. And he went on to direct let's see, the best thing he's directed. He directed some Battlestars. Has he popped to HBO ever? Directed Vikings, The Expanse. Okay, so his peaks are Battlestar and Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, or Expanse if you're into that. I never could get into it. But anyway, not a good direction setup here for the episode. Like,
No.
especially if you're waiting for this scene. Like, it just messes with people who actually are committed to watching this piece of shit. But okay, so then we get the credits and we immediately go home where Max is telling Gustav what he did, but Gustav's not telling him who Klaus is again.
Yeah.
So Gustav's super pissed off at him. And he's like, what were you doing there? And Max is like, I was putting wild roses on the graves to keep the vampires away, Uncle Gustav. And Gustav's like, oh, I'm sorry, Max. You couldn't have known that with Klaus loose, things are going to be bad. And then Max is like, yeah, but what was he doing in your family crypt? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Intro Chris and Sophie. Chris with his Canadian accent going. They were sold oot. They were sold oot at the theater. They were going to go see The Nutty Professor, starring European treasure Jerry Lewis. And then Gustav's going to send them away to Uncle Wilhelm's, who I think we've heard of before.
I think we've heard him before, but I don't recall.
A long time ago, because we haven't been keeping track of the people. Or did we even see Uncle Wilhelm at one point?
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
It's this weird situation, like last episode, where people show up who could have been in previous episodes, like the woman last episode, her brother who was working, like he could have been in an episode and that would have been fine and it would have been like a nice callback. And then people who are mentioned and we never see. Like, I don't know. It's the weirdest thing. It's like, why does, well, I know why, because it didn't go long enough to have a show Bible. And
show Bible is Bram Stoker's Dracula. Okay, so then we cut to Lucard, and here's where he mentions the oil field fires, which I swear was mentioned in a previous episode.
Maybe.
So
we're back to him doing business dealings, though.
And my other notes are the hair's old because it's an old. Yeah, we're back to and Geordie's really shitty. Like the only time Jordy's any good is when he's like being really mean to Gustav, which is kind of funny. Like,
which is kind of funny. And his little twirl in appearance, I love
yeah.
that. That was great. But we'll talk about that when we come to it because that was magical.
Do you want to talk to us about some King Lear?
Oh boy. So they have their one little we missed it. There were a couple
What?
episodes where we wanted it,
Yeah.
and now it's back, but only for one scene where they're arguing about a quote from King Lear. I guess there's a little more Shakespeare talk later, maybe a little more my speed. But they're arguing, and then uh, um, Lucard is sure that Klaus is back for revenge because he let uh, Gustav put a circle of holy water around him, trapping him. And Klaus says, no, 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 no. I'm not out for revenge. Not on you, anyway. Not on you. I want to trap my father, blah, blah, blah. I forget what else happens in the scene. It was so stupid. I mean, it's setting up the plot. I get it, but it's still
This is your pile
plot.
of dust. This is where Klaus says, I've had a lot of time to think. And I'm like, how?
He's talking about how he's had a lot of time to think, and he was wrong and he was being rash, before, because if you don't recall, in that episode a billion years ago, he Lucard was chastising him for being too bold in his countryside ravagings, and he needed to settle down. He needed to be a little bit more measured in his murder, and whatever. So, but yeah, he's talking about how he's had all this time to think and blah 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 blah. And I was like, how can a pile of ash just think? Now, you did just say he got hit by maybe got hit by a beam of sunlight, and so maybe he did have time to think. Maybe that sunlight didn't hit him until a certain time of the year, and he's just been a pile of ash for a couple of days. We don't know. We don't know how much time he had to think and how his brain and his memories can be reconstituted by the holy water going away. I don't know.
So then the only other thing is he promises when he says he's going to give him Gustav's head on a platter, he says a triumph long delivered, because it's been so hard for Dracula to kill Gustav. Dracula's sitting in his office doing business instead of just going out and killing Gustav.
And Gustav, or excuse me, well, both, but Lucard has had multiple occasions where he could have and should have killed Gustav, but didn't, because you saved my life, or you did this, or you did that. This whole thing, like just like with Max early in this episode, getting his life for saving Klaus, this whole thing. Gustav has not killed Dracula numerous times for the same reason, for some sort of brotherhood. I don't know. It's so silly and weird. Like, the morality of this is so weird. It's like, he's a vampire and he murders people. Kill him. Like, your honor is not at stake here.
It's almost like they didn't think this through.
Almost.
So then there's this. The last thing is when Lucard's like, do you think you can pull this off, Klaus? I've never been able to do it. And Klaus is like, I have one great advantage. And I just was waiting for somebody to go, you're his son.
Yeah.
But they don't. Instead, we cut from Lucard's office to the castle where Gustav is letting himself in to the living room set with the fireplace. Yeah. Klaus materializes in. Now, his appearance could also place it, because it took him a while to get that blue swish special effect. Mm-hmm. But they've got the blue swish. He comes in. They have a scene about how, oh, I wish I could be your son again, and let me offer you a triumph over Dracula. A lot of calling Lucard Dracula in this one.
Yep.
And he's going to take Gustav to presumably Dracula's crypt, which we've never seen.
That's what he's promised.
But wait, right away,
Oh.
He tricked him, and in comes Dracula.
With this beautiful, like, ballet twirl and his arms crossed. I don't know who choreographed it or if it was an accident. I mean, it had to have been an accident, right? There's no way they put so much time into it. But it's beautiful the way he just like arms crossed, swishes in. It's so great. I loved it.
So in Klaus's first episode,
Mm-hmm.
um, Klaus wasn't a silly jackass yet. He also
No.
wasn't Gustav's son yet. That came in Klaus's second episode. But also in the first episode, where they did the Shakespeare the first time, there was a certain vibe between Klaus and
Yeah.
Lucard.
Yeah.
And it was a welcome vibe at that point in the series, episode 4 or whatever.
Yeah.
It quickly went away. But the theatrics of this scene for about 15 seconds remind of that, but then we get back into the silly shit
Yeah.
because Klaus has betrayed them both. He has set up a bomb
A
that has
ticking time bomb. Literally bad guy trope 101.
with a cross on it that will drain Dracula's powers, meaning crosses have there are different levels to your cross. You can have a level 1 cross, you can have a level 50 cross. Klaus has got a level 50 cross that he has apparently had stashed away somewhere, because you got to remember he's only been back a day at the most, maybe not even a night, because if this could still be the same fucking day.
Does he live in the castle?
Usually,
or does he have his own? Or does he have his own house, Klaus?
I think he lives in the castle.
It seems like he lives in the castle, so he must have had that stashed away in the castle.
Yeah, we've never seen the living accommodations in the castle.
Yeah,
it's weird they haven't done those sets.
Or not so weird. Or not so.
Just the zombies, like the zombies in a fucking Downton hallway.
In a closet. They just get close in a closet and they stand there.
Okay, so Klaus then they notice Klaus isn't losing his powers, even though Dracula can feel it just with the cross being exposed. And that is because Klaus is wearing a cape, his fucking dime store Dracula Halloween cape, that has been lined in silica, the silk of silica. And that is the cross of silica, and that is how science works.
I don't know if it's silica, but it's something like that. Yes.
I don't know if they got their
if
shots.
The science is right.
When they should have a couple of years ago. Okay. So so we're at 30 minutes. Now, once Klaus is going to run off, but he's like, okay, you guys are both going to be dead in 30 minutes, so you get to spend your last moments together. Bye-bye.
Which is the most Bond villain shit ever. It's like, why 30 minutes? You're giving them time to fix
how long it takes the cross to kill Dracula, which means it's not a good thing. He should have just had a huge water balloon of holy water or something. Like, there's so many other things he could have done.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we cut to only 15 minutes left, which means we're not doing this real time, unfortunately, or fortunately.
Fortunately.
And so now we get Dracula whining, sort of. He's monologuing about how, like, oh, this is a shitty way to go. But this is where he gets in the line about how he's locked up with an annoying, nattering old man. And I'm like, yeah, fuck that guy. Gustav sucks.
I think we've had enough good Geordie Johnson stuff recently that even though he was terrible in this, I didn't mind it. Because he's been so good lately in other episodes we've watched. I mean, so good. That's relative, right?
Right.
Relative to other people in the episode.
This just shows us how far he's come, too.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's another light kid episode. So we really get to see the men together, which is weird.
So this is where Geordie talks about how he knew Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
and he never bit him because he was so good. Here's a problem with that. He could have bit him and Shakespeare could have written plays forever.
Well,
just thought.
And he would have been even smarter, even more clever.
Right. He would have been able to learn how to play the piccolo. Like, this is not but this is an older episode. They hadn't decided that becoming a vampire gives you super learning, because look at Klaus. He's a fucking idiot.
Yeah, that's true.
Or Klaus just like did that and then just did nothing with his life but watch Yogi Bear cartoons. So during this monologue, Gustav's like trying to give him shit. And he's like, oh, I bet he based Richard III on you. And he's like, nope. Richard III was a miscalculator. And then Gustav's like, you're Titus. To which Geordie does a Titus speech.
The death speech, too. A death speech.
They discuss how it is not a century for belief. And now we get into the most backstory for sort of Dracula's 20th century that we've ever had.
Yeah.
Starting with he thought he was exposed by Bram Stoker, but it just entered him into the realm of fiction.
And then he goes on to shit on Bela Lugosi a little bit, talking about how the movies were the best thing that could have ever happened to him, because instead of being a figure of horror and terror, he's become a figure of fun, somebody to make fun of. So fuck you, Lugosi.
It also discounts that this was 90, so Christopher Lee would have still been in the sort of zeitgeist. This is the 1991. Like the Universal monsters didn't really come back until the 90s, so he's being pretty vague about who he's shitting on. But then this would also have been a great time to mention Kim Coates' character.
It would have been, yeah.
Instead,
just as a little callback, a beautiful little callback. Nope. Can't do it.
Instead, Geordie goes on about how, I wish Olivier could have played me, or George Raft, which I was just like, they've never seen a George Raft movie. Like, you get more subtext from a fucking cartoon gangster than you get from George Raft. Like, please. So once they get done with this interchange, there's 12 minutes left. I didn't time whether or not it was actually 3 minutes, but I mean, thank goodness we're counting down. These two are going to be dead. The show's going to be over. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Klaus will unleash his tears upon the world. Except the kids snuck out on Uncle Wilhelm's. So they went home to check on Uncle Gustav because, they're a team of vampire hunters and they're going to work together. And they don't see him there. So they're like, the only place he could have gone is the castle. Gustav is a Dayton man. We've established that. He could be out at the club fucking hitting on 25-year-olds and, getting beat up by their boyfriends. Like, that'd be a good episode. It's also entirely believable. But no, they're like, he's at the castle. So let's go to the castle. Back at the castle where there are 7 minutes left. So this means we know that the castle is less than 12 minutes. The castle is, I think, going to be about 6 minutes away tops.
Yeah.
On foot.
Not even on bikes.
Because we hadn't gotten the bikes yet. This is pre-bike budget. Why didn't they bring back the creepy graveyard guy? That would have been so much fun.
I don't know. That would have been much better.
Okay.
Even if he was just like hanging out with Max, like, I'll help you do this.
Yeah. Like walking along, putting stuff on. So Dracula and Helsing are talking, and Gustav are talking again. And this is the first time they acknowledge that Klaus is Gustav's kid. They say he is your creature as much as he is mine.
Yeah.
And then it seems like they're about to fight. They say it's better to end fighting than waiting. Gustav gets out a stake. They're gonna fucking just kill each other or try to kill each other before Klaus can take them out.
Right.
Okay. We then cut to the kids coming into the castle. This is the stupidest fucking scene in the thing. Kids coming into the castle where they have a little bit of back and forth about who's got the holy water. And Sophie is still in her stage, nagging character development stage, where she's like, well, somebody has to check these things. Klaus comes in as bats and chases them out through a door. That's the scene.
It establishes that they're at the castle, I guess. They made it.
They made it in presumably less than 10 minutes. Klaus then goes into taunt. He's like, I'm gonna go taunt them with this news.
Again, Bond villain. Like,
so he goes in to the living room to taunt them, where we discover there are 2.5 minutes left. Klaus lies and says he killed the kids. So that's a thing. But then he notices them laying dead on the floor.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, that sucks, but that's fine with me because you're still fucking dead. And
I still win. Yeah.
And wouldn't that make a good title for a TV show?
Not in Florida.
This was, of course, of the era of My Two Dads. So,
I know.
Florida, you're not even going to be able to talk about getting periods is the latest.
I know.
Thing.
I know.
Florida's fucking... Okay, so if only you'd listen to me, Klaus then says to his dead dads, if only you'd respected me, if only you'd loved me. And I'm like, that's about Gustav. That is 100% about Gustav. Dracula likes his fucking sidekicks. He liked Klaus at the beginning. He liked Sophie. He likes his sidekicks. He likes having a partner.
Acolytes. Yeah.
So he starts laughing, and then he says, I would have killed you anyway. Ha ha ha. So much fun. And then Dracula just gets up and gets him?
Yeah, so he turns around with his back to the dead bodies, and Dracula just and he says, Klaus says, like, wait a minute, if he had been staked, he would have turned into a pile of ash.
That's right.
And then Dracula jumps up and like grabs him from behind, and they tussle a little bit.
That's right. And then Gustav goes for the key card because it's the
to turn off the
works on
of course. It's the 90s. Hello.
This is where Klaus runs out through the door. No, Dracula runs out through the door. Where does Klaus go?
I don't know. I don't remember. Didn't you just watch it?
No, I watched it last night.
Oh.
Because Dracula runs out through the door upstairs like a goof.
But he doesn't because he's still there when the kids show up.
Right, but I mean at the very end he runs out like a goof. Like because he could have done that the entire time because Klaus didn't lock the doors.
Yeah.
Even though he said he locked the doors, it turns out Klaus didn't lock. Or no, wait. Klaus came in through that door, so Klaus would have unlocked that door and.
Oh, yeah.
Or is that a different door? It's unclear how many entryways there are into the...
It's weird to walk into your living room from a staircase.
Right. And my question are there two staircases or just one?
I don't know.
Yeah.
We've never gotten like a good full shot of the living room. We always just see it from weird angles.
Because that's how the set works.
I guess.
So, yes. Wait. No bats. What is... Okay, so 10 seconds left. They saved the day.
Not Klaus. Gustav is struggling with a moral dilemma. Do I let this thing detonate? Because
not detonate the cross. Does he leave the cross down?
It looks like he's considering stop not swiping the card because Dracula's taken off the super silky cape that Klaus was wearing, that Klaus was wearing to protect himself. And it seems like he is considering killing both of the vampires and himself just to rid the world of Dracula, right? But then last second, like always, he swipes the card and there's 1 second left on the detonator. Wow.
You're being so complimentary. I just didn't think you could figure out how to use the card.
I always am complimentary
I was like,
to
okay,
my
boomer.
elders,
Okay,
Andrew.
boomer. You don't know how to use the fucking credit card swipe. And no, he doesn't because he pays in Cougarand or something. Okay. Hallmark Entertainment definitely filmed in South Africa. Okay, so then he closes up the cross because he decides, even though Klaus is like, Father, you have him now. Closes up the cross. I think this is where Klaus doesn't escape because I have a note that says bats, and Dracula doesn't turn into bats. So that must have been about Klaus.
It must have been about Klaus.
Okay. So Gustav's then trying to run from Dracula, who's now after him.
Because Dracula's like, you fool. What makes you think I'm not going to kill you?
God's own fool.
God's own fool. That's right. God's own fool.
Pretty flash. Okay. So, but we work together. And then Dracula's like, well, here's your object lesson in good and evil.
Yeah.
We've had scenes like this, even if this aired in order. We've already had them have this scene where they decided they weren't going to kill each other. What's funnier is that we've seen Gustav is not above going after Dracula and Dracula's wounded either. Like we have a whole episode
at the
fountain or the toxic dump
spring. Yeah.
Okay. So the kids come in to save the day. And Gustav says, open the front of that box, which then reveals the cross, which then is going to hold Dracula in a
powerless state.
Now, the cross is in a box where it is protected on 3 sides, meaning that its powers don't emanate out. The door is behind them. All of the doors are behind them, except for the door that goes through to the dungeons, I think. And so that means Dracula could have gotten behind the cross and used his superpowers to break through a locked door.
I mean, maybe.
Time. I'm just because it's like he's got to be in front of this object. This thing does not have a radius of influence. It's shining a wide beam of anti-vampire godliness out.
I see. I didn't understand it that way. I understood it that like a cross in a house, like in the second episode or whatever, with the cross hanging in their house, that it just kept them away in that way. Even though this one's more powerful and it diminishes powers and stuff, but the fact that it was shot to be glowing kind of makes, I guess I can see that how that would make one think that.
But also the cross, usually Dracula has to perceive the cross for it to be effective against him.
Yeah. You can't just wear it under your shirt.
Right. So it's not the existence of the cross, it's Dracula's perception. So what if he had just closed his eyes and been like, wait a second, I don't see the cross of that accursed carpenter. I'm fine. Like, I just solved all vampire movies. Okay. So now we have Gustav lecturing Dracula about how they will always win because they have love on their side. And I'm like, really? Sophie's in love with Chris at this point? Really? Because she sort of had her heart broke, guys.
No, they love each other. They're like a big family. And they're here to protect each other and help each other. They're brave in the face of evil and greed and temptation, even though Sophie's already been turned into a vampire and she loved it.
So Chris is now approaching Dracula slowly with his cross or with a stake. It is incredibly weird. It's like they didn't rehearse this. They've got Gustav blathering and just the Chris kid just like sort of walking around in between people slowly trying to get to his mark on time. It's fucking weird. But Lucard then grabs a sword from a suit of armor.
Oh, that's right.
King of the Wicker People. And he starts swinging the sword at Chris. Chris, only has a fucking piece of wood. What's he going to do against an actual weapon? It's almost like the stake is a problem. Also, he doesn't have like a mallet. So what is he going to do? Like, why wouldn't you just have a what do you call it? A pike. That's what you should have.
Yeah.
You would want a pike in this situation, not a stake. The stake comes later. All right. So then Dracula runs up to the door and lets himself out because whatever.
He can do that all of a sudden.
And Max takes the cross. Will this come in handy later? We shall find out. But it hasn't yet. And then the episode ends with Gustav.
It went really quickly, huh?
Yeah, but the last line. Gustav's like, "What'd you do? Bribe Uncle Wilhelm?" No, they snuck out on him because he's a doddering old man like you. Like, what? Like, bribe Uncle Wilhelm to do that made no sense.
Yeah.
So, not high marks for writers Glenn Davis and William Lauren.
No.
Okay, so they wrote a bunch of episodes around 9 to 13. I bet this goes back there.
Okay, that would make sense.
But we do have one more Klaus episode to go, and it's unclear what order that was going to be in. So we have that to look forward to.
Yeah, speaking of looking forward to, the next episode, I love Lucard. It's the truth, but it's also the title of the next episode. New director, Alan Croker, not seen his name, maybe. That's a weird picture he has. Canadian, looks like a Canadian guy hanging out. A couple episodes 13 episodes directed of Star Trek Enterprise, if you watched that. Avonlea, of course, because he's Canadian. So there's a few things. I'm kind of excited about it. The theme is writing. Let's see, Lance Burton. Why does that name sound familiar? Oh, that's my husband's. Well, never mind. And Margot Burton. That's weird. There are two Burtons in this episode. I wonder if they're related. That's Canada. Who knows? Yeah, I actually kind of enjoyed this episode only because it went so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, right, we didn't have to go through minutes 30 to 17 or whatever. And they did jump around. But yeah, I mean, it's also kind of it's nice that we're not getting back into the kids.
Yeah.
Just because it's been very disappointing.
Yeah. A nice light bottle episode with some Shakespeare talk and some overacting and some underacting.
And sadly, we are once again cheated out of Gustav being killed.
Or the kids. But next week, it looks like it will be a little more kid heavy. Max, but maybe we'll be back in order and he'll be a snarky, goofy kid. But if he's the center of the episode, who knows? Who knows? I don't know.
Oh, I'm not looking at IMDb. I'm looking at Wikipedia, and they don't even mention Max for next episode. So,
yeah. Well, thank you guys for listening. Any final thoughts, Andrew?
4 to go.
4 to go. That's a good final thought. Thank you all for listening. We will see you next time when we watch I Love Lucard, episode 18 of Dracula, the series. See you in Television Land, Andrew.
See you in Television Land, Emily.